Taking risks to pursue our dreams is what we're talking about today. We all have dreams and aspiration. We all start life with the desire to reach our goals and dreams. Life does get in the way and can change the course of our dreams. Taking risks is something not everyone is comfortable to do. However, to reach your goals and dreams, you do have to take some kind of risks, whether big or small. Are you in limbo and want to jump into a life change? Or you've had a dream for years, but have just left it in the background, but now you're ready to take the plunge? You may have the imposter syndrome, or you're not sure if you can do it. Well, this episode is for you. Welcome aboard the podcast, A Woman's Spark with Janik, a place to show women how powerful they are and remind them of the spark that we all carry, the strength that gets us up every time we fall. This podcast is a place to feel seen and understood when we don't fully have all the help and the energy to get back up on a hard day. This podcast is to help you heal and become the best version of yourselves every single day during the roller coaster of life. We're building a community of women who wants to help one another and inspire each other to become stronger and more united, as we were born to be. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing taking risks to pursue our dreams. What does that mean? A dream, for one, is obviously never the same as the next person. They can be small, they can be big. They always involve emotions and back and forth in your mind. Overthinking things and battling between your head and your heart. Wondering if you're taking the right decision. Will it be okay financially? Will I be seen differently or judged by people around me? There are a million questions that run through our head when we want to take the next plunge, the next step to be the best version of ourselves and follow our dreams and aspirations. Today's guest and I will elaborate on those feelings and emotions. We're going to try to analyze what keeps us from doing it and why we should take the plunge. We're going to help you better understand what that crazy feeling is in the pit of your stomach, help you understand it better, and maybe give you some tools to keep moving and take actions. By the way, any action is an action. No matter how small the step is towards your goal, it's a step closer to being the best version of yourself and reaching your dreams. When you're about to embark on something new and scary, there's always these butterflies in your stomach and some doubts that come with it. Why is it so hard? And why do most women stop themselves from following their dreams? Good question. However, did you know that following your dreams can be challenging due to factors like fear, lack of resources and opportunities, external pressure, self-doubt, procrastination, perfectionism, lack of clarity, comparing yourself to others, balancing dreams with responsibilities, setbacks, and failures? Overcoming these obstacles require self-awareness, a strong belief in yourself, and the ability to navigate setbacks and learn from your mistakes. Shouldn't that mean we should focus our energy on doing something we like as our job? Be happy and fulfilled in our work? Because we're doing that every day. Wherever that may be, in whatever field you prefer, you should do a work that you love. On today's episode, we have a sparkling woman. She's a clinical social worker, a media commentator, a family caregiving expert, a keynote speaker, and she's the author of the book, A Plan to Aging Well, and is also a mother of two. Her name is Stephanie Erickson. If you're looking to find some inspiration with pursuing your own dreams and taking risks, you're at the right place. We're going to take a short break and welcome her after this. Welcome back to a Woman's Spark podcast with Janik. Today on the podcast, we're welcoming Stephanie Erickson. She's got many hats: a clinical social worker, a media commentator, a family caregiving expert, a keynote speaker. She's also the author of the book, A Plan to Aging Well, and a mother of two. She's native of California, has lived and worked in Quebec, Canada, and is now back in her roots in California. So she's clearly pursued her dreams more than once. Please welcome our spark of the day, Stephanie Erickson. Hi, Stephanie.
Hi, Janik. Great to be
Hi.
here.
It's really nice to have you on board. We definitely haven't seen and spoken in such a long time. And you fit the bill so well with the subject of today, which is pursuing our dreams and taking risks in life. And I think a lot of women who are listening, who are on the verge of maybe jumping in or who've had a dream for a long time, would like to know how does it go and, what are we feeling? So I'd like you to tell us about your life path and your journey with your risk you've taken.
Well, every day there's usually some sort of a risk, little risks, big risks. But every day, I think since very early on, I've always tried to think about what I want to do and then just move my body in that direction, whatever that might mean. Meaning like big steps, little steps, thoughts only and no steps. I mean, in terms of the risks that I've taken in my life, I think the biggest risk that I took in my 30s was moving from California to Quebec. There was so much involved in that. I had my own business in California, had a beach apartment, and left it all and moved into a province in which I didn't speak the language, had to get relicensed as a social worker, became a stepmother. There was a lot in that big change, and had a lot of anxiety about it, had a few panic attacks over it leading up to and actually at the start of my move. And then I just kind of slid into a rhythm and found a way to manage it. And I think what that taught me about myself, and that was in my 30s, and I'd been taking a lot of risks earlier on, like starting my own business in my 20s and not working for someone else. There was all those kinds of things too, but they didn't feel as significant as actually leaving my home, leaving my family, and moving to a new place. Then I really felt like a fish out of water. In California, it felt easier to take those kinds of risks, but once I moved to Quebec, it was a lot harder. But that experience taught me a lot about myself and my resilience. And I've always just kind of leaned heavily into that resilient piece of myself, knowing that I'm always going to find a way to make it work.
I mean, every time we pursue a dream or we pursue a new venture, there's always a why. So what was your why back then when you went from California to Quebec? Because clearly you didn't go from the sunshine to the snow for no reason.
Yeah. Well, women tend to do really, can I swear on this?
Have fun.
I was going to say batshit crazy things, unless it has to do with a guy.
That's fine. That's fine.
Unless it had to do with a guy. So I had met a guy on vacation, and he had children, and he was living in Quebec, and his kids were minors, and he wasn't going to leave, and so that's what sparked it. I'm not sure that I would have taken that kind of like moved to another country in any other context.
Okay.
And I wasn't moving on my own. I mean, I was moving into his home. So I had some support. So there was a lot of risks involved. But the way I kind of looked at it at that time was I can always go back.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't work out, I can always go back. It's not like I was, giving up my citizenship and then I'm stuck never being able to return or anything like that.
Mm-hmm. And what were the feelings that rushed through you whilst you were taking this decision and then taking the steps? Because it's two different things, right? There's the process of the decision making and then the steps that you take to actually move forward. So what were the feelings then?
Yeah, well, certainly fear and anxiety were strong and persistent. I mean, I have a lot of anxiety by nature anyway. I always have my whole life, so that's always something that I've had to fight against is the nerves and feeling afraid to do things and be out of my comfort zone. But another layer of that is my relationship with my family, particularly my mother, who means well, but questions everything that I do. So are you sure? Are you sure? Do you know what you're doing? And I think throughout my life now, I'm realizing I'm 55 now. So now I can clearly see that the way in which she would do that stuff always created doubt in my mind, because she was always questioning, as if I didn't know if I knew myself to make a decision that would work out for me. And if it
Okay.
didn't work out, that I had the skills within me to manage whatever happened. And so when I made that big move to Quebec, there was a lot of the outside chatter of, are you sure you know what you're doing? Had I not had that outside chatter throughout my life, I think I would have done a lot more. But I always doubted myself. And I think a lot of that just came from my upbringing. I love my mother. I'm not putting my mother down.
No,
We're saying these things based on her own experiences, and I understand where she's coming from certainly now. But that that messes with us, right? With the way that
absolutely. We're the result of our childhood and the values we were taught as children. So absolutely, it stays with us, and then we work through it throughout our whole adult life. I
yes.
don't think it ever fully goes away, but we do work. If we work on them, they do tone down a little bit.
Yeah, well, I've done a lot of work on myself to even come to the realization is, why do I always doubt myself? Why do I always second guess myself? Why do I always struggle to make a decision? Eventually I make the jump, but there is so much overthinking, which I think is a gender a gender
Yeah.
commonality, the overthinking. But I'm constantly going back and forth. And I even see it in my daughter. I mean, Janik will go to the grocery store and she's like, I feel like some chips. I'm like, okay, we'll be in the chip aisle. It will literally take her 7 minutes to choose which bag of chips. And she's going back and forth and back and forth. And so I'm like, okay, what part of that is environment? What did I do to mess her up where she can't even choose chips now? But I think, that's part of being a woman, is we have so much responsibility put on us to always do the right thing and take care of everybody else, that we begin to
Oh.
second guess ourselves all the time, wondering, are my actions going to impact others? And so then
And
we back ourselves off.
and we tend to nurture other people, take care of other people. So as soon as you make a decision for yourself, you doubt it because you feel like you should be taking care of other people as opposed to nurturing your own needs.
A
And
100%.
yeah, um, how do you get rid of that feeling, or how do you tone it down in order to jump ahead? In your case,
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I've just used a lot of evidence-based thinking, and that's probably part of my clinical background. I love cognitive behavioral therapy, which is a framework that therapists use in therapy, and I really like it because it's about taking the distortions and the thoughts that we have in our mind and overlaying evidence onto them and kind of approaching it with a curiosity instead of a judgment. So when I start feeling the doubt, instead of judging myself, well, initially I judge myself and tell myself horrible things. I give myself horrible messaging. Then I stop myself. And then I say, stop judging yourself and beating yourself up. Back off. Come from a curious spot.
mhm,
Be curious about these thoughts that you're having and the decisions that you want to make, and just ask yourself very open-ended questions that aren't judgments, but just trying to learn more. And then I start looking at the evidence when the doubt creeps in, is where else in your life have you wanted to do XYZ, and how has that worked out? And in the end, every single thing I've ever done has always worked out.
yeah,
Because even if it hasn't worked out, that's actually been working out. If you
yeah,
know what I mean, like all of the mistakes aren't really mistakes. I'm so thankful that they happened because other things came out from them. So just over time and getting older, I kind of have that behind me to know, hang in there, because it will always work out.
absolutely. And I was saying in the introduction that any step, however small it may be, is a step towards your goals. So it may be daunting, but just take the smallest step you can take in order to like reach eventually. All those small steps will lead to the giant leap of faith. So, um, so you moved from California to Canada. What made it a success for you? What made it that when you got here, it became your home for many, many years and you made it a success for yourself?
I'd like to say I did that. I'd like to take
Yes.
full credit.
Oh,
I did it.
absolutely. What I mean is, how
Yeah.
did Stephanie make it a
Yeah.
success for herself?
What the reason why I'm saying it, I knew that's what you meant with the question.
Okay.
The reason why I answered it that way is because I think, again, as women, I'd say we would have a tendency to say, "Oh, my husband was great because he made it
Uh,
this," and then we tend to look outside of ourselves as to why an environment worked.
you
And
know
yes,
what? Thank you for that answer. Thank you for that answer, and like making it. I love it. Keep going. I'm sorry.
yeah. So that's why I'm just emphasizing that it was me. Yes, there's things that all kinds of people did, but it was me who made friends. It was me who took the language exam and passed it to then get licensed in another country and in a province that I have to speak French in order to be licensed. It was me who went out and got those jobs. It was me who took the chance and built my own business there after learning how a socialist social work system works and how do I be an entrepreneur locked into that system. I did all of that. I'm the one who went out and did the flying trapeze and
Yeah.
it was me. It was just taking all of these. I think I told you when you first reached out to me, it's like micro steps, micro sparks, to use
Like,
your term.
yeah.
It's just little by little. It's never a big bang. It's
Yeah.
all the little things. And it's only in hindsight that we can go back and go, oh, yeah, it was just that little moment when I decided I'm going to go here instead of here. And things changed.
And it's important to celebrate all those steps, isn't it? All those little sparks, all those little moments that add up. And that when you look back, you're like, I did that. You know what? Let's celebrate because I deserve it. You deserve it. So moving forward, how many years were you in Quebec?
19.
19 years. Oh, that's a special number for us, isn't it?
It is. We share the same birthday.
We do.
And, just before you ask me your question, just like Janik, the way that we met is that same way, is that we're both entrepreneurs and we stepped outside of a comfort zone to say we're in the same field crossing over. Let's meet, let's get to know each other and start counting on each other, relying on each other, referring to each other. And then look, it's, whatever. I don't think we met 19 years ago, but
Yeah,
at least 10, 12, 13 years probably.
at least because my oldest daughter is 13. And I think, yeah, I started my previous business before she was born. So
Yeah.
over 13 years ago.
Yeah. And so those little sparks, they last, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You make a lasting effect
Yes.
on other people and on yourself as well.
Yeah.
So those 19 years go by and you went back to California, another huge jump because by then you had two kids. You had your own kids and your husband's kids. Huge jump there. But without going into the details of the jump there, what did that mean as an ending of the first dream that you pursued?
Mm-hmm. I closed that chapter very willingly and with peace. Had it not been, minus 20 half the year, maybe it would have been harder. But, to move back to the California weather was, certainly easier coming in this direction because it did feel like coming home. It was okay for me closing the chapter. It was a bit sad, like kind of letting my home go, but I think it's more nostalgia because I just still have all these images of my young kids in that home, watching them play on the street. So I still get sort of heart sick, but it's not that I miss it. It's just the nostalgia of that time in my life, which it didn't exist there when I left anyway. That part was already gone. I don't know if that's answering your question, but like
it is.
closing it was okay. I felt
It was
comfortable.
closed. That's it. You close the chapter and you're moving on to a new chapter. And I like to think of it as you're moving forward, evolving, not staying stagnant in what felt comfortable because taking risks is quite uncomfortable. But that chapter in your life was over. So you moved on to the next one and it takes nothing away from the previous one. It's just a new adventure, right?
Exactly.
For anyone who's listening and is wondering financially, when you take a plunge into a new risk, a new adventure, how much of the financial aspect is involved, and how much effect does it have afterwards once we've taken the plunge?
Well, in my line of work, because I'm a service oriented business, and the way in which my business was constructed in California before I left,
Yeah.
in Quebec when I was there, and now the way it's constructed here is that I don't need a place. So there's not a real financial investment because I'm going to my clients, and now after COVID, so much of what I do is online. So there hasn't been a financial investment per se. It's just more of not having income for a while as you're building the relationships and building the business.
Yeah.
I've been very fortunate. My husband is not an entrepreneur, which I really like because he's like steady Eddie. He's got the stable income. And so in Quebec, it worked out where I was able to take a risk and kind of build. And I don't know if it was like this for you in your business, but I was so afraid I wouldn't be able to have enough income. And I mean, within just several months, I was like, oh, this is totally working. Like it didn't take long at all.
That's it.
And then here, it was different because when we moved, we took a major financial hit because of the dollar and the
Yes.
conversion. We lost a lot of money moving. My husband got delayed in the immigration process, which was a horrific experience for both of us. He was delayed a year, and then he wasn't working because then he moved. And so, and
The stable jobs wasn't there anymore.
it wasn't there anymore. And this financially, it is so much more expensive here.
Yes.
What
Okay.
we're paying here is leaps and bounds beyond what we were paying in Montreal. So it's been a very big shift for us. And so what did I do the first 2 years I was here? I worked for a company doing marketing on the road, and it was horrible. But I needed a steady income while I built some relationships to then figure out, how do I get out of this hellhole of working for someone else and start again? And he needed to get a job, and we kind of made a deal, like so many months, so much savings,
Yeah.
and then I would take a leap. And of course, again, within a few months, I was like, oh yeah, best decision
Ever. I saw you post recently with the beach. You know what? You look perfectly fine and perfectly happy.
Yeah.
I mean, what I take from the financial aspect of taking the plunge is every single step and every single risk I've taken, and you can tell me if it's the same for you, is I always ended up managing. If I look back, the stress was there. Yes. At one point, I had no money. At one point, none of us had a job. I mean, us meaning my husband and I. It was like, how are we going to make ends meet? But if I look back today, we always found a way. We always found a way. Maybe you're going to cut on the nice piece of steak you're going to buy at the grocery shop, or you might not go to see a movie for a couple of months, but then eventually it's going to make sense and that plunge will be worthwhile. What do you think?
I would totally agree 100%. And that's what I was talking about evidence-based thinking, is that when I go down that rabbit hole of, oh no, what if, which is the worst, the what if is the worst monster that lives inside our head that just interrupts all of our healthy thinking. We start going with the what ifs. And I try and cut off that thinking quickly and go to the evidence-based thinking, which is what you said is, when have I ever not built my own business? I did it in California. I did it again in Quebec. And guess what? I've done it again now. Like there's no evidence to show me that I can't do it. There's no evidence to show me that I've been unhoused. There's no evidence to show me that we haven't made it work, that I couldn't just, I could also work at Trader Joe's if I needed to, by the way. Another amazing thing about California. Do you know Trader Joe's, Janik?
Nope.
Oh, okay. Well, whenever you come and visit me, it's like the best little grocery store that has the coolest stuff, and it's really affordable. Everyone who lives here knows Trader Joe's. We all love it. Anyways, but it's like a grocery store. Like I can always do something. I'm not unskilled. So if I need to take a risk and I end up working at a grocery store instead of pursuing my career as a clinical social worker, then that's the way it is. And then as I'm working at the grocery store, I'll continue to build. Like just knowing that the evidence behind me has always been that I've made it work.
That's it. Plus, if you don't go ahead with your risk or you're taking the plunge or your dreams, your body's going to tell you. You might have regret. And I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't want to be on my deathbed and be like, oh, I regret X, Y, and Z. At least if I say, at least I tried, even if I failed, at least I would have tried. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, right. That's a lot to unpack. We're going to take a short break and come back to discuss the positive side, because anyone who's in the turmoil of, should I follow my dreams? Should I take the plunge? What comes afterwards? Is it positive? We've talked a little bit about it, but we're going to come back and delve into that a little bit more. Thanks. Welcome back to the podcast, A Woman's Spark with Janik. Stephanie is back with us, and we're talking about taking risks when following our dreams. We've talked about her story and how it can be quite challenging to take the plunge, but we've also touched on the positive. But I'd like to really delve back into it and ask you, what are the pros? Because anyone who's listening is thinking, oh, I'd like to take the plunge, but then what if I take the risk? And what are all the amazing feelings that come after taking the plunge?
I'd like to maybe even just reframe the words that we're using. So risk is a great word, and I understand, and I use it myself. But I'd like to instead switch it out with the word experience, because I think if we think of things as an experience, the more experiences we have, the more information we have, and the more well-informed we are, the more positive and more appropriate and more beneficial choices we can make moving on. So information is power. The way to get information is to have experiences. The way to have experiences is to just do them. So I think maybe that's a nice way to think about it, is that it's about, let me try a new experience and see what information I can gain.
Yeah.
And is this information helpful or not helpful? And then how do I make a pivot and just follow the more helpful route? And in that pivot, have another experience. And then how does it branch off from there? What was helpful? What was not helpful? And I think if we maybe reframe it in that way, maybe it won't feel as scary.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And what would you say to someone who said, oh, I've done some research and it doesn't fully align with what I thought it was, but I still, deep in my gut, still want to do it?
I would say do it. Because to me, the only downside of not doing it is wondering what it could have been. Because if you do it and then don't like it, it's not, I failed. It's, yeah, I had that thought. I had that gut feeling. I tried it. I had an experience. Guess what I learned? Not for me. Okay, what's next?
Yeah.
And then just switching gears, that it doesn't have to be as dramatic as I think we all think it will be now. When you're talking about, I'm going to take $5 million and invest it in something, that's a whole other level. I'm not talking about that level where there's obviously needs to be some due diligence to see if this business is going to, if we're talking about businesses and risks in business, there needs to be due diligence. But if it's other things like, I'm not sure, small things. And actually, on that note, let me back up. I think for someone who feels unsure about stepping out of the comfort zone and doing something like trying a new business or quitting a job and trying to go back to school or something related to like career, I say start with things that have less of a potential financial impact, like try a yoga class or go, I don't know, run a half marathon or do something else that's out of your comfort zone to get used to feeling what it's like to not be in your comfort zone and to get used to feeling that it's okay. And try those like micro experiences. Remember, I was talking about that word micro. Like instead of looking at it so large, is like break it down in a micro way. What little things can I do in my life to take risks, to just get myself acclimated that things feel uncomfortable. And when they do, I learn. And when I learn, I have power. And then
I love it. I really love it. Those micro steps. feeling uncomfortable, putting yourself in an uncomfortable position, even if it's a small, small way, then you'll get used to it. And then the next phase, and then the next phase, and then another one. Then after that, your dream will be like, oh, easy. So
Yeah.
reachable.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can
Well,
do it.
yeah. Yeah. And we learn so much about ourselves when we're uncomfortable, way more than when we're comfortable. So if for you, you're uncomfortable talking to new people, start at the grocery store asking the person at the cash, like, what'd you do this weekend? Or, oh, I really like your earrings. Where did you get those? Anything, right? So we're just like starting to get used to feeling awkward and getting used to that feeling. Because
Mm-hmm.
then the bigger things aren't going to feel as big because we have so many little things behind us.
Could you name me 3 values that are now a big part of your life all the time due to those changes, those steps that you've taken in your life?
Family has always been the first. I value my family. Everything I do is for them. They are the absolute priority for me. I think of them with every decision that I make, um, to see what's going to be in the best interest of the unit, not necessarily an individual person, but of the community of our family. So
Yep.
family is one. I think as I get older, health has been a real value, is really prioritizing my health, physical health, mental health, and continually taking active steps to work on those things.
Yep.
Um, I think my other value that has always been there and is even more prominent in my life is just honesty and authenticity, is not feeling bad about who I am and just
Mm-hmm.
being who I want to be and not caring about trying to put on a front that it looks like I'm somebody that I'm actually not. So when I'm supervising new clinicians, let's say, like new people who are trying to be therapists and I supervise them, they're students, master level students. Or when I don't know if you know this, but I started teaching at a university here. I'm teaching a
Oh,
class
I
in
didn't
the
know. Okay.
in the counseling department. So when I'm lecturing or whatever, and I'm talking about, oh yeah, I didn't know what to do. This one time, this client said this to me, and I was like, oh my God, what do I do with this? And you could see the relief on their face, like, oh, you mean we're not always supposed to have it together? And I have come to really value that more and more in my life and my career, of just being very honest with people when I really have no idea what I'm doing. And
I,
it's,
I
go
think
ahead.
humans can really relate to another human who's being truly a human, right? Because when you're in touch with your reality and who you are, and you accept that you're human, you're making mistakes, the other human in front of you will respect that way more than you just knowing all the answers and pretending to find a solution for them, when really, actually, if you don't have the right answer and something bad happens, it'll fall back on your head. So honesty is definitely, I I, I like what you said. Thank you. Thank you,
Yeah.
Stephanie. So
And
you
I
said
say
fam. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
family health and honesty. But like I just said to my son maybe 2 weeks ago, I don't know, he was frustrated. He's 17, frustrated with me with something. And I said, Maxim, this is the first time I've been a mother for a 17-year-old. Just so you're clear, I also don't know how to be a mother to a 17-year-old. And by the way, when I finally know what to do, you're going to be 18, and then you're going to be 19, and then you're
It's
going to
going
be
to be
20. So
something else.
I'm constantly trying to be like at least a millistep ahead of you. But, it's all new for me too. Like that's what life is. We never quite know what we're doing. It's just like an ongoing learning process. So anyone who thinks that they have it all together, I would be very concerned about.
We're learning every single day. You're talking about your son who's 17. My oldest is 13, and it feels like, well, it's a new step every day. And right now it's like a crash course of teenage years, but I'm sure I'm going to have another crash course in 6 months of that version of the teenager that I'm going to have in 6 months' time, right? So we learn
Yes.
every single day.
Yes.
Uh, I have one last question before we end the podcast. Best and worst advice you've ever gotten when you're having a new experience?
Well, I can tell you that the worst advice, and I don't know if it's really advice, but it kind of goes back to my mom and that feeling of when I say something of, are you sure? But did you think about this? Did you think about that? And then all of a sudden me on the receiving end is like, wait a minute, is this wrong? Am I doing something wrong? Should I not be doing this? Should I not trust myself? Do I not have the skills? So it's not that it was advice, but that putting too much stock in other people asking me questions as if they're doubting what I'm doing. When
Yeah.
that's the angle that they're coming at versus saying, "Oh, you're doing a podcast. Cool. Well, let me know. I did one once before. Let me know if you want to hear about my experience. Maybe there's something that you could take away from that." That's very different than like, "Well, Janik, are you sure? Have you done this? Have you done
Mhm.
that?" And then it's like, "Okay, wait, what am I doing wrong?" So I think it's not about advice. It's about the way in which people have come to me before.
Yeah.
Um,
Blocking it off, probably mentally. Yeah. Blocking all those doubts around you, because you'll get the most doubts from the closest to you, unfortunately. And the ones that you trust the most are the ones that are going to doubt you the most.
yeah,
So steering clear or disconnecting yourself from what they're going to say and keep trusting your own intuition.
yeah.
Maybe the best, or the word, best advice slash word,
Well, that's
listening to the others. Yeah,
yeah, and that's exactly my point. Is then the best advice I got is actually my own internal advice.
that's it.
It's not from other people. The best advice is always what I know in my gut. That's always the thing that's led me in the right direction. It's when I ignore that, that's the worst. That's when things go terribly wrong. If I
Yeah.
just listen to myself and believe in myself and trust myself, things work their way out. When I let the chatter and other people begin to influence me and get into my brain, which by the way is already going in circles and thinking of everything. Believe me, you don't need to insert more chaos in between my ears. Enough is going on already. So I'd like to say that the best advice comes from internally from myself.
Stephanie, thank you very much for taking the time to share your wealth and wisdom about your journey through taking, I'm not going to say risk, I'm going to say experience of life.
Yay.
I definitely know it's going to help other women who are on the cusp of following their dreams or thinking about following them. So thank you. For anyone who's listening, for more information about Stephanie, you can find her on her website, stepherickson.com. Thank you. This is it for us for today. All you beautiful ladies out there, I hope you can take in all this knowledge and apply it to your own current experiences. Tune in every week on your favorite podcast platform. And if you want to get involved with the Be Guided, Be Inspired community and you want to share what kind of impact you've had on others, or you want to share your experience or you're going through a tough time, come and meet us on there and we'll connect together at www.beguidedbeinspired.com. Thank you for listening. Have a lovely day. Bye. See you next time.